Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Tonight, we journey back through time, to where the story of tea begins, in the misty mountains of ancient China. Picture yourself in the year 2737 BCE. The air is cool and fragrant. An emperor named Shen Nung sits beneath a wild tea tree, and as he boils water for drinking, something magical happens. A gentle breeze stirs the branches above, and a few delicate leaves drift down, landing softly in his pot. The emperor watches as the water transforms, taking on a golden hue, releasing a gentle aroma. He takes a sip. This is the moment, according to legend, when tea was discovered, a gift carried on the wind. For thousands of years after this discovery, tea remained China's treasured secret. It grew wild in the forests of Yunnan province, in the southwestern corner of the empire, where ancient trees stretched their branches toward the heavens. These weren't small bushes like we might imagine today. Some of these original tea trees grew to heights of nearly 60 feet, their trunks thick and gnarled with age, their roots drinking from mountain streams. The Chinese began to cultivate these wild trees, learning their rhythms and mysteries. During the Tang Dynasty, from 618 to 907 CE, something remarkable happened. Tea evolved from a medicinal drink into an art form, woven into the very fabric of daily life. It was during this golden age that a man named Liu composed what would become tea's sacred text. Liu was a poet, a scholar, and a tea master. In the year 760 CE, he completed his masterwork, the classic of tea, known as the Cha Ching. Within its pages, he documented everything: how to select tea leaves, the proper water temperature, the ideal vessels, the spirit with which tea should be prepared and consumed. This wasn't merely a manual. It was a philosophy, elevating tea to a spiritual practice that would influence centuries to come. As dynasties rose and fell, the methods of preparing tea transformed like water, taking new shapes. During the Tang Dynasty, tea was often formed into pressed cakes, then ground into powder and whisked with hot water. Imagine the sound of that bamboo whisk, turning in slow circles, creating a frothy, jade-green elixir that nobles and monks alike would sip in quiet contemplation. But then came the Ming Dynasty, beginning in 1368, and with it, a revolution in simplicity. The Emperor Hongwu, seeking to ease the burden on his people, abolished the complex tribute teas that required elaborate processing. In their place emerged a gentler method, loose-leaf tea, steeped simply in hot water. This is the method we still cherish today, passed down through 600 years of morning rituals and evening quietude. While tea deepened its roots in Chinese culture, whispers of this mysterious beverage began to drift along the ancient trade routes. Buddhist monks, traveling between China and Japan in the early 9th century, carried tea seeds as carefully as they carried sacred texts. They understood that tea was more than refreshment. It was a companion to meditation, keeping them alert through long hours of contemplation, their minds clear and present. In Japan, tea found new expression. By the 16th century, a tea master named Sen no Rikyu refined the Japanese tea ceremony into its most elegant form. Every movement became meditation: the way the host folds the cloth, the angle at which the bowl is turned, the quiet gratitude exchanged between host and guest. For principles guided everything: harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. In a small tea room, with its simple tatami mats and a single flower arrangement, the whole universe could be found in a bowl of whisked green tea. Let these images rest in your mind: ancient trees and misty mountains, scholars with careful hands, monks in quiet temples. The story of tea is just beginning, and there is so much more to discover. But for now, simply breathe, and let yourself drift. As you breathe in and out, we follow tea's journey westward, carried by travelers and traders along paths that connected distant worlds. For centuries, tea remained hidden within the borders of the East, but eventually, stories of this enchanted drink reached European ears. The first whisper came through the Portuguese, who had established trading posts in Macau in the 1550s. They were the first Europeans to taste tea, to experience that delicate warmth spreading through them, and they brought back tales of this exotic leaf. But it would be decades before tea would truly arrive in the Western world. The Dutch, those master merchants and sailors, became the first to import tea into Europe for commercial purposes. In 1610, the Dutch East India Company's ships arrived in Amsterdam harbor, their holds containing precious cargo, chests of tea from Java and China. Picture those wooden chests being carefully unloaded, the dried leaves rustling softly inside, traveling so far from their mountain homes to the flat lands of the Netherlands. From Amsterdam, tea began its gentle spread across the continent. It arrived in France around 1636, where it was initially embraced as a medicinal tonic. The French court regarded it with curiosity: this bitter, strange beverage from the Orient, said to cure headaches and restore vitality. But it was in England where tea would find its most devoted following, though its arrival there required one more step in the journey. In 1662, a Portuguese princess named Catherine of Braganza married King Charles II of England, and her dowry included not just territories and gold, but something far more transformative: a chest of tea and the habit of drinking it. Catherine adored tea. She brought her Portuguese custom to the English court, and soon, the aristocracy gathered to share this fashionable new beverage. Imagine the court ladies in their elaborate gowns, carefully holding delicate porcelain cups, the steam rising like morning mist. But tea remained impossibly expensive, affordable only to the wealthiest families. In the late 1600s, tea cost more per pound than the average worker earned in a year. It was kept locked away in special tea caddies, beautiful boxes with intricate locks, and the lady of the house would hold the only key. Each precious leaf was measured carefully, treated like the treasure it was. Servants were watched closely during tea service, lest a single spoonful go missing. Then came the coffee houses, those bustling centers of conversation and commerce that had sprung up across London. One establishment in particular would change everything. Thomas Twining opened his coffee house in 1706 on the Strand in London, and he did something revolutionary. He began selling tea alongside coffee. But more than that, Twining's establishment welcomed women, which was unusual for coffee houses of the era. It became a respectable place where ladies could gather, and tea found its social home. As the 18th century unfolded, tea transformed from a luxury into something approaching necessity in British life. By 1750, the British East India Company was importing over 2 million pounds of tea annually. Ships made the long, perilous journey from Canton, their holds filled with tea chests, sailing for months across vast oceans. The British became a nation of tea drinkers, and this simple leaf began to shape politics, economics, and even revolution. Because tea's journey wasn't peaceful everywhere. Across the Atlantic, in the American colonies, tea became a symbol of tension. The British government's Tea Act of 1773 allowed the British East India Company to sell tea directly to the colonies, undercutting local merchants and asserting control. The colonists saw this not as generosity but as tyranny. And so, on a cold December night in 1773, in Boston Harbor, something extraordinary happened. Colonists, some dressed as Mohawk warriors, boarded 3 British ships and threw 342 chests of tea, over 92,000 pounds of it, into the dark water. The Boston Tea Party, as it came to be known, wasn't really about tea at all. It was about freedom, about principle, about the right to determine one's own path. But tea was the vessel through which that message was sent. Breathe slowly now, feel the weight of history, the journeys across oceans, the transformations of cultures. Tea has traveled so far, touched so many lives, sparked conversations and revolutions. Rest now in this knowledge, as we prepare to continue our journey. Let your mind drift now to the rolling hills of India, where another chapter in tea's story was about to unfold. For so long, China had been the sole keeper of tea's secrets, the only source from which the world could drink. But the British Empire, with its endless thirst for tea, grew uneasy depending entirely on Chinese supply. They dreamed of growing their own tea, in lands under their control. And so began one of history's most audacious acts of botanical espionage. In 1848, the British East India Company sent a Scottish botanist named Robert Fortune on a secret mission into the interior of China. This was dangerous work. Foreigners were forbidden in the tea-growing regions, and the penalty for stealing tea plants or secrets could be severe. But Fortune was clever and brave. He disguised himself in Chinese dress, shaved his head in the local fashion, and traveled deep into the tea mountains of Fujian and Anhui provinces. There, he carefully collected tea plants, seeds, and something even more valuable, he recruited Chinese tea workers who knew the ancient methods of cultivation and processing. Imagine him, walking quietly through misty plantations, gathering not just plants but centuries of accumulated knowledge, preparing to transplant an entire tradition to foreign soil. Fortune succeeded. He smuggled approximately 20,000 tea plants and seedlings out of China, along with the skilled workers, and brought them to India. The British had found their new tea empire, and it would reshape the world's tea trade forever. But India's tea story had actually begun a bit earlier, in a place called Assam. In 1823, a Scottish adventurer named Robert Bruce was exploring the Assam region in northeastern India when local Singpho tribesmen showed him something extraordinary: wild tea plants growing naturally in the jungle. These weren't Chinese tea plants brought by traders. These were indigenous Indian tea trees, Camellia sinensis var. Assamica, a different variety altogether. They had been growing there, unknown to the wider world, for thousands of years. The Singpho people had been making tea from these leaves long before the British arrived, brewing it with fat and garlic, drinking it for strength and warmth. By 1839, the first Assam tea was auctioned in London, and a new era began. The Assam tea plant was robust, its leaves larger and more full-bodied than the delicate Chinese variety. It could withstand India's intense monsoons and scorching heat. Soon, vast tea plantations spread across Assam's landscape, worked by laborers brought from distant parts of India, creating a new society built around tea. The British didn't stop with Assam. High in the Himalayan foothills, they discovered another perfect home for tea: Darjeeling. At elevations between 3,000 and 7,000 feet, where cool mountain air and mineral-rich soil created magical conditions, they planted tea gardens that would produce what many call the champagne of teas. The first Darjeeling tea gardens were established in the 1850s, and even today, Darjeeling tea is prized for its delicate, muscatel flavor, its golden color, its ability to capture the essence of the mountains in each cup. As tea plantations flourished in India, they also spread to another British colony, Ceylon, now known as Sri Lanka. Initially, Ceylon was covered in coffee plantations, and coffee was the island's fortune. But in the 1860s and 1870s, disaster struck. A devastating fungal disease called coffee leaf rust swept through the plantations, turning healthy green leaves brown and destroying entire crops. The coffee industry collapsed, and planters faced ruin. But one man saw opportunity in catastrophe. James Taylor, a Scottish planter, had already begun experimenting with tea cultivation in Ceylon in 1867, establishing a small 19-acre tea garden in the Lulakandra estate. As coffee died, tea lived. Within 2 decades, Ceylon transformed completely. Coffee plantations were uprooted and replaced with tea bushes that thrived in the island's tropical climate. By 1890, Ceylon was exporting over 22 million pounds of tea annually, and the island had found its new identity. This knowledge, as we prepare to continue our journey. Feel yourself drifting now, through Indian hillsides covered in green, through mountain gardens where tea leaves catch the morning dew, through islands transformed by a simple plant. The world was changing, shaped by this leaf, and yet there is still so much more to discover. Let your breathing slow, let your mind wander through these distant plantations, and rest. As tea spread across continents and empires, it began to weave itself into the daily rhythms of ordinary life, creating rituals and traditions that would define generations. In Britain, as the 19th century progressed, tea evolved from an aristocratic luxury into a democratic pleasure shared across all classes. But it was one woman, Anna, the 7th Duchess of Bedford, who gave us one of tea's most enduring traditions. The year was 1840, and the Duchess found herself facing a particular problem. You see, in those days, the British ate only 2 main meals, a substantial breakfast and a late dinner served around 8 or 9 in the evening. The long afternoon stretched emptily, and the Duchess experienced what she called a sinking feeling around 4 o'clock. Her solution was simple and revolutionary. She began inviting friends to join her for tea, accompanied by small sandwiches, cakes, and pastries. This was the birth of afternoon tea, a ritual that would become quintessentially British, a gentle pause in the day when time itself seemed to slow down. But there was another tea tradition emerging in Britain, one born not in drawing rooms but in factories and fields. Working-class families created their own ritual called high tea, served later in the evening, around 5 or 6 o'clock. Unlike the delicate afternoon tea with its tiny sandwiches, high tea was a substantial meal, the main meal of the day for laborers returning home tired and hungry. There would be tea, yes, but also meat pies, cold cuts, bread and butter, perhaps fish or eggs. It was called high tea not because it was fancy, but because it was eaten at a high dining table rather than the low tables of afternoon tea. 2 traditions, both centered on tea, each reflecting different worlds within the same nation. Across the ocean, tea was finding new expression in America. After the Revolution, Americans had largely turned away from tea, preferring coffee as a patriotic statement. But tea never truly disappeared. And in the summer of 1904, at the World's Fair in St. Louis, something unexpected happened that would change how the world drinks tea. A British tea merchant named Richard Blatchenden had traveled to America to promote Indian tea. But St. Louis that summer was sweltering, brutally hot, and fairgoers had no interest in hot tea. Desperate to salvage his exhibition, Blachindon made a bold decision. He poured his freshly brewed tea over ice, creating something entirely new. The crowds loved it. Iced tea was born from necessity and innovation, and today, most tea consumed in America is served cold, particularly in the South, where sweet tea flows like a golden river. That same World's Fair witnessed another tea innovation, though this one's story is less certain. A tea merchant named Thomas Sullivan, based in New York, had been sending tea samples to potential customers in small silk bags, intending for them to remove the tea before brewing. But his customers, not realizing this, simply dropped the entire bag into hot water. It worked beautifully, convenient, tidy, no loose leaves to strain. Whether Sullivan did this intentionally or his customers discovered it by accident, the tea bag was born. By 1908, Sullivan had switched to gauze bags, and a revolution in convenience had begun. The tea bag would transform how millions of people made tea, but purists would forever debate whether this convenience came at too high a cost to quality and ritual. Still, there's something democratic about the tea bag. It made good tea accessible, easy, fast. A busy factory worker or office clerk could brew a decent cup in moments, without special equipment or training. While tea was being reinvented in America, in Russia, tea had long held its own special place. Tea arrived in Russia in the 17th century, traveling not by sea but overland along the ancient caravan routes through Mongolia and Siberia. Russians developed their own unique way of preparing tea, using a special urn called a samovar. Picture it, a large metal urn, heated by coals in its central chamber, keeping water constantly hot. On top sits a small teapot containing zavarka, a very strong tea concentrate. When serving, you pour a small amount of this concentrate into your cup, then dilute it with hot water from the samovar's tap to your preferred strength. The samovar became the heart of Russian homes, always warm, always ready, a gathering place where families and friends could share tea through long, cold winters. In Morocco, tea took on yet another character entirely. Moroccan mint tea, or atay, became central to hospitality in daily life. Green tea, usually Chinese gunpowder tea, is steeped with fresh mint leaves and generous amounts of sugar, then poured from a height into small glasses, creating a foam on top. The pouring is an art form, the server lifting the teapot high, the golden liquid cascading down in a graceful arc. To refuse mint tea when offered in Morocco is to refuse friendship itself. 3 glasses are traditional. The first glass is as gentle as life, the second as strong as love, the third as bitter as death, the Moroccans say. Feel how tea has shaped itself to each place, each people, each moment. Afternoon elegance in Britain, iced refreshment in America, the warm samovar in Russia, the sweet mint of Morocco. Tea is 1,000 things, adapting like water, finding its form. Let these images blend together now, like tea diffusing through water, and allow yourself to sink deeper into rest. Breathe deeply now, and let us journey into the very nature of tea itself, into the science and wonder hidden within each leaf. All true tea, every cup you've ever tasted, comes from a single species of plant. Camellia sinensis. Whether you're drinking delicate white tea, robust black tea, earthy pure, or vibrant green tea, they all begin as leaves from this one remarkable plant. The differences, the incredible variety of flavors and colors and aromas, come not from different plants but from how the leaves are treated after they're picked. It's a beautiful truth that such diversity can emerge from such unity. The transformation begins the moment a tea leaf is plucked from its branch. Left alone, tea leaves naturally begin to oxidize, a process where enzymes within the leaf react with oxygen in the air, much like how an apple turns brown when you cut it. This oxidation is the key to understanding tea's many forms. Green tea is created by stopping oxidation almost immediately, heating the fresh leaves with steam or in hot pans to deactivate the enzymes, preserving the leaves' green color and fresh, grassy flavor. The Japanese perfect this with steam, the Chinese often with dry heat and large woks, and each method creates its own subtle character. White tea represents the opposite approach, minimal intervention, maximum patience. White tea is made from the youngest buds and leaves, picked in early spring when they're still covered with fine white hairs, giving the tea its name. These delicate leaves are simply withered and dried, with almost no processing at all. The oxidation is slight, gentle, unhurried. The result is the most subtle of teas, pale silver in the cup, with flavors of honey and flowers that whisper rather than shout. White tea is tea at its most natural, closest to how it grows in the wild mountains. Oolong tea exists in the beautiful space between green and black, partially oxidized, capturing qualities of both. The word oolong means black dragon in Chinese, and watching oolong leaves unfurl in hot water, you can see why. They twist and curl like dragons awakening. Oolong oxidation can range from just 10% to 70%, creating an astonishing spectrum of flavors. Some oolongs taste fresh and floral, others rich and roasted, toasty and sweet. The production of fine oolong is considered one of tea's highest arts, requiring perfect timing and an almost intuitive understanding of the leaves. Black tea, known as red tea in China because of the color it produces in the cup, is fully oxidized. After picking, the leaves are withered to reduce moisture, then rolled or crushed to break their cell walls and speed oxidation. They're left to oxidize completely, turning from green to copper to deep brown, developing bold, malty, robust flavors. Finally, they're dried with heat to stop the process and preserve the tea. This full oxidation makes black tea more stable, able to travel great distances without losing quality, which is why black tea became the tea of trade, the tea of the British Empire, the tea that crossed oceans. Then there's pure, the mysterious, ancient tea from Yunnan province, a tea that improves with age like fine wine. Pu'er undergoes a unique fermentation process, where beneficial bacteria and fungi slowly transform the tea over months, years, even decades. Some pu'er cakes are aged for 50 years or more, developing deep, earthy, complex flavors, notes of forest floor, sweet dates, camphor, leather. In China, aged pu'er is treasured, collected, traded like precious artwork. The tea changes year by year, becoming something new, something richer, a living history you can taste. Within tea leaves themselves lies a fascinating chemistry. Tea contains caffeine, yes, but also an amino acid called L-theanine, found almost nowhere else in nature. This combination is remarkable. Caffeine stimulates alertness, while L-theanine promotes calm focus and reduces anxiety. Together, they create what many describe as alert relaxation. Your mind becomes clear and focused without the jittery edge that coffee can bring. This is why monks chose tea for meditation, why scholars drank it through long nights of study. The plant seems designed to bring balance, to sharpen the mind while soothing the spirit. Tea also contains powerful antioxidants called polyphenol, particularly catechins in green tea and theaflavins in black tea. These compounds have been studied for decades for their potential health benefits, protecting cells, supporting heart health, even showing promise in various medical research. But perhaps the most important thing tea offers isn't found in its chemistry at all. It's the ritual, the pause, the moment of peace it creates. The act of brewing tea, of holding a warm cup, of sitting quietly for a few minutes, this might be tea's greatest gift to our hurried, anxious world. Let yourself settle now, like tea leaves settling at the bottom of a cup. Feel the warmth, the comfort, the ancient wisdom in this simple plant. There are still more stories to tell, more journeys to take, but for now, simply rest in this moment, breathing slowly, drifting gently, at peace. As you breathe in the quiet of this moment, let us explore the artistry and craft that surrounds tea, the vessels and traditions that honor each cup. The Chinese have a saying: "Water is the mother of tea, a teapot its father, and fire the teacher." Everything matters in the making of tea, but perhaps nothing more than the vessel itself. For over 1,000 years, one clay above all others has been treasured for brewing tea. Yixing clay, named after the region in China where it's found. This purple-brown clay, formed from ancient lake beds, is porous and breathes, absorbing the oils and essences of the tea brewed within it. A Yixing teapot is never washed with soap, only rinsed with water, because over years, decades even, the pot itself becomes seasoned, holding memories of every tea it has brewed. Tea masters dedicate a single Yixing pot to just one type of tea, this pot for oolong, that pot for pure, allowing each to develop its own character, its own spirit. The Japanese approach tea vessels differently, with their own profound philosophy. In the tea ceremony, the bowl is chosen with careful intention. Often, the most prized bowls are not perfectly symmetrical or flawlessly glazed. Instead, they embrace wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection and impermanence. A tea bowl might have an uneven rim, an irregular glaze, a small crack that has been repaired with gold in the art of kintsugi, making the repair itself beautiful, celebrating the bowl's history and resilience. To drink from such a bowl is to accept beauty in transience, to find perfection in imperfection. In Tibet and Mongolia, tea traveled along ancient routes and transformed into something entirely different, butter tea, known as pacha. High in the Himalayas, where oxygen is thin and temperatures plunge below freezing, Tibetan people discovered that tea could be more than a drink, it could be sustenance. They brew strong black tea, sometimes aged pure, then churn it vigorously with yak butter and salt in a special wooden cylinder. The result is rich, creamy, slightly salty, more like a soup than tea as we know it. It provides calories, warmth, and energy in one of Earth's harshest environments. For Tibetan nomads and monks in mountain monasteries, butter tea is life itself, drunk throughout the day from wooden bowls worn smooth by countless hands. The British brought their own innovations to tea culture, particularly in how tea reaches the table. In the early 18th century, as tea became more popular in Britain, a new profession emerged: the tea clipper captain. Clipper ships were built for one purpose: speed. These sleek, beautiful vessels with their towering masts and clouds of sail raced from China to London, competing to bring the first tea of the season to market. The most famous of these races occurred in 1866, when 5 clippers left China within days of each other. The Taiping and the Ariel sailed neck and neck for over 14,000 miles, through storms and doldrums, arriving in London on the same tide, just 10 minutes apart after 99 days at sea. These races captured the public imagination, turning tea transport into high drama. But the age of sail was ending. In 1869, the Suez Canal opened, cutting thousands of miles from the journey between Asia and Europe, and steamships, which could pass through the canal while sailing ships could not, became dominant. The romantic era of the tea clippers faded into memory, though their beauty and speed are still remembered with awe. Meanwhile, in China, tea was facing its own transformation. For centuries, China had been the world's sole tea supplier, but by the late 19th century, India and Ceylon had taken much of the market. Chinese tea exports declined, and internal turmoil through the early 20th century further disrupted the tea trade. Yet tea remained woven into Chinese culture, surviving wars, revolutions, and upheaval. In 1949, after the Communist Revolution, the government took control of tea production, organizing it under state-run cooperatives. Traditional tea culture was suppressed during the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 70s, when tea ceremonies and elaborate tea customs were seen as bourgeois. Ancient tea gardens were neglected, knowledge was lost. But tea endured, as it always does. Beginning in the 1980s, as China opened economically, tea culture began its revival. Old traditions were rediscovered, ancient tea trees were protected, and a new generation learned the old arts. Today, China is once again the world's largest tea producer, growing over 2.5 million metric tons of tea annually, more than any other nation. The ancient tea trees of Yunnan, some over 1,000 years old, are now treasured as national heritage, their leaves sold for extraordinary prices, their continued existence a living link to tea's distant past. In Taiwan, tea culture flourished in its own unique way. The island, with its mountains and subtropical climate, proved ideal for growing oolong tea. Taiwanese tea farmers developed new cultivars and processing methods, creating oolongs of exceptional quality, high mountain oolongs grown at extreme elevations, where cool temperatures and mountain mists produce leaves of incredible sweetness and complexity. Taiwanese tea culture blends Chinese tradition with Japanese influence in its own innovations, creating something entirely distinctive. The Gongfu tea ceremony, a method of brewing small amounts of tea in tiny pots with multiple short infusions, became refined into an art form in Taiwan, spreading from there across the world. Let these images wash over you now, ancient purple clay pots gaining character with each use, imperfect bowls holding perfect moments, butter tea sustaining life in frozen mountains, clipper ships racing across oceans, and tea surviving, always surviving, adapting, enduring through every change. Feel yourself drifting deeper now, carried gently on these stories like a leaf floating on water. Close your eyes and let us return to the gardens, to where tea grows, where patient hands pluck leaves under open skies. The finest teas are still picked by hand, just as they have been for thousands of years. There is an art to the plucking, a skill passed down through generations. The most prized teas use only the newest growth, the tiny unopened bud and the two youngest leaves just below it. This is called two leaves and a bud, and it represents the plant's most tender, most flavorful offering. An experienced tea plucker can harvest these delicate tips with remarkable speed, their fingers dancing across the bushes, selecting only the perfect leaves, leaving the rest to grow. On a good day, a skilled plucker might harvest 30 to 40 pounds of fresh leaves, which will yield only about 8 to 10 pounds of finished tea. Tea plants themselves are remarkably long-lived and resilient. If left unpruned, a tea plant can grow into a tree reaching 30 feet or more in height. But in most tea gardens, the plants are kept pruned to waist height, creating what's called a plucking table, a flat top of dense foliage that makes harvesting easier. These bushes can produce leaves for 50, even 100 years or more. Some of the oldest cultivated tea bushes still in production are over 300 years old, their roots deep in the earth, their branches still sprouting new leaves each spring. The finest teas in the world often come from what's known as first flush, the very first harvest of spring, when the plant awakens from its winter dormancy. After months of rest, the tea plant concentrates its energy into these first new leaves, filling them with exceptional flavor and aroma. Darjeeling first flush, harvested in March and April, is particularly prized, with its light, floral character and bright, almost champagne-like quality. Tea lovers wait eagerly for first flush teas the way wine enthusiasts anticipate a new vintage, and these teas command premium prices at auction. But not all great tea comes from spring. In Japan, there's a tea that grows in shadow, hidden from the sun. About 3 to 4 weeks before harvest, farmers cover their tea plants with bamboo screens or tarps, blocking up to 90% of sunlight. This forces the plant to produce more chlorophyll to capture what little light remains, turning the leaves a deep, vibrant green and altering their chemical composition. The result is matcha and gyokuro, teas of incredible sweetness and umami richness, with almost no bitterness. Shade growing is labor-intensive and reduces the harvest, which is why these teas are so precious, but the flavor achieved is unlike anything else, deeply vegetal, sweet, smooth as silk on the tongue. Matcha itself holds a special place in tea's story. Unlike other teas where you brew leaves and discard them, with matcha you consume the entire leaf, ground into a fine powder. This powder is whisked with hot water until frothy, creating a bright green elixir. You're not just drinking tea-infused water. You're drinking the leaf itself, receiving all its nutrients, all its caffeine, all its essence. Zen Buddhist monks have used matcha for over 800 years to stay alert during long meditation sessions. The preparation of matcha requires precision. The water must be the right temperature, about 175 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling. The whisking motion must be quick and deliberate, creating a foam without leaving lumps. It's a meditation in itself. In India's Assam and Darjeeling regions, tea gardens operate almost like small villages. Many tea estates are enormous, spanning thousands of acres, with their own hospitals, schools, temples, and markets for the workers and their families. Generations of families have lived on these estates, their lives intertwined with the rhythm of tea, plucking season, processing, monsoons, and rest. It's a way of life that has endured for over a century and a half, though not without its challenges and complexities. The tea you drink carries within it the labor of these communities, the expertise passed from parent to child, the dedication of those who tend the plants year after year. Kenya, in East Africa, emerged as a major tea producer only in the 20th century, but it has grown with remarkable speed. The first tea was planted in Kenya in 1903, but commercial production didn't truly begin until the 1920s. Today, Kenya is the world's third largest tea producer and the largest exporter of black tea, with much of it going into the tea bags consumed around the world. Kenyan tea gardens benefit from consistent temperatures, abundant rainfall, and high altitude, allowing tea to be harvested year-round. The tea is typically processed using the CTC method. Crush, tear, curl, which produces the small, uniform granules perfect for tea bags. It's efficient, consistent, and produces a strong, brisk brew, though it lacks the complexity of orthodox, hand-rolled teas. Yet even as industrial tea production has grown, there's been a counter-movement, a renaissance of artisanal tea. Small tea farmers, particularly in China, India, Nepal, and Taiwan, are returning to traditional methods, producing limited quantities of exceptional tea. They're experimenting with heritage cultivars, wild-growing tea trees, and ancient processing techniques that had been nearly forgotten. This craft tea movement values quality over quantity, story over standardization. Each tea becomes unique, tied to its specific mountain, its particular maker, the weather of that season. Its tea as agriculture, as art, as connection to place. Breathe in now, imagine the scent of tea gardens at dawn, mist rising from the leaves, the quiet concentration of pluckers at work, the patient transformation of leaf to cup. Let yourself sink deeper into rest, into dreams of green hillsides, into the ancient peace that tea has always offered those who pause to drink it. Close your eyes and let us return to the gardens, where tea grows under open skies. The finest teas are still picked by hand, a skill passed down for millennia. The most prized teas use only the 2 leaves and a bud, the newest, most tender, and flavorful growth. An experienced plucker selects these delicate tips with dancing fingers, harvesting up to 40 pounds of fresh leaves a day, which yields about 8 to 10 pounds of finished tea. Tea plants are remarkably resilient. While they can grow into 30-foot trees, in most gardens they are pruned to waist height, creating a plucking table. These bushes can produce leaves for 50, even 100 years or more, with some of the oldest cultivated plants still producing after over 3 centuries. The most sought-after teas often come from first flush, the initial harvest of spring. After winter rest, the plant concentrates its energy into these first leaves, giving them exceptional flavor. Darjeeling First Flush, with its light, floral, and bright character, is particularly prized, commanding premium prices like a fine wine vintage. In contrast, Japan has a tea that grows in shadow. Farmers cover the plants weeks before harvest, blocking up to 90% of the sunlight. This forces the plant to produce more chlorophyll, turning the leaves a deep, vibrant green and altering their chemistry. The result is matcha and gyokuro, teas of incredible sweetness and umami richness, with almost no bitterness. Matcha holds a unique place. You consume the entire leaf, ground into a fine powder and whisked with hot water. You receive all the leaf's nutrients and caffeine. Zen Buddhist monks have used it for over 800 years to stay alert during meditation. Its preparation, requiring precise water temperature and deliberate whisking, is a meditation in itself. In India's Assam and Darjeeling, tea gardens operate like small villages. Estates span thousands of acres, with hospitals, schools, and markets for generations of families whose lives are intertwined with the rhythm of tea. The cup you drink carries the labor and expertise of these communities. Kenya emerged as a major producer only in the 20th century. Today, it is the world's third largest producer and largest exporter of black tea, often used in tea bags. Kenyan gardens benefit from high altitude and consistent rainfall, allowing for year-round harvesting. The tea is usually processed by the CTC method, crush, tear, curl, which produces small granules for a strong, brisk brew. Yet, alongside industrial production, an artisanal tea renaissance is underway. Small farmers in China, India, Nepal, and Taiwan are returning to traditional methods and heritage cultivars. This craft tea movement values quality over quantity, tying each tea to its specific mountain, maker, and the weather of that season. Tea is art, agriculture, and connection to place. Breathe in now. Imagine the quiet concentration of pluckers, the mist rising from the leaves, the patient transformation of leaf to cup. Sink deeper into the ancient peace that tea has always offered. Let your mind wander now to the moments tea has touched, the quiet revolutions it has sparked, the lives it has changed in ways both grand and small. In the 19th century, as Britain's love affair with tea deepened, the temperance movement found in it a powerful ally. Temperance societies opened tea rooms, offering working men an alternative to the pub. Tea became associated with sobriety and self-improvement, offering working-class women a space of safety and respectability. Tea, in its gentle way, became an agent of social reform. During World War II, tea took on an almost sacred importance in Britain. The government ensured it remained available, rationing 2 ounces per person per week. Mobile canteens served tea to rescue workers and families who had lost their homes. Winston Churchill declared tea more important than ammunition, recognizing that the ritual of brewing tea was an act of resistance, a refusal to surrender to despair. Across the Atlantic, sweet tea took root in the American South. Becoming more than a beverage, it became hospitality itself. Made by dissolving sugar in hot tea, then serving it ice cold, it became ubiquitous by the early 20th century. To this day, sweet tea is tradition, memory, and comfort all at once for Southerners. The 20th century also saw tea become a symbol of elegance. Taking afternoon tea at London's Ritz Hotel, which began serving it in 1906, became the ultimate expression of refinement. The three-tiered stand of sandwiches, scones, and pastries, served in the beautiful Palm Court, set the standard for all afternoon teas. In Turkey, tea found yet another identity. After World War I, the government promoted tea cultivation along the Black Sea coast as coffee became expensive. Turkey transformed into one of the world's largest tea consumers per capita. Turkish tea, K, is served strong in distinctive tulip-shaped glasses, and tea gardens, K-Basizi, became the centers of social life. To visit Turkey is to be offered tea constantly. In recent decades, tea has undergone a youthful transformation with the rise of bubble tea, boba, emerging from Taiwan in the 1980s. By adding tapioca pearls, fruit flavors, and milk, tea was turned into a playful, customizable drink that quickly spread across the globe as a youth culture phenomenon. Tea has also played a role in scientific discovery. In the 1840s, Scottish botanist Robert Fortune, on a secret mission to China, uncovered a truth that shocked the Western world. Green tea and black tea came from the same plant. Europeans had believed they were different species, but Fortune revealed the difference was all about processing. In the realm of health, modern research has identified compounds in tea, particularly the catechin EGCG, as one of the most powerful natural antioxidants. Green tea, with its high EGCG levels, has been the subject of thousands of studies exploring its potential health effects. Our ancestors, in their intuitive wisdom, knew something true. Let these stories settle around you like a soft blanket. Tea is comfort in wartime, as hospitality in the South, as social revolution in Turkey, as endless reinvention. Feel yourself drifting now, deeper into peace, into the timeless comfort that tea has offered humanity for 5,000 years. Breathe slowly now, and let us explore the sacred spaces tea has created, the rituals that transform the ordinary into something transcendent. In Japan, the tea room, or chishitsu, is a world apart. These humble, small structures feature a low doorway, the nijiraguchi, forcing everyone to bow and humble themselves upon entering. Samurai had to leave their swords outside. Inside, all are equal. The space is simple, intimate, where a bowl of tea becomes the entire universe. The water used for tea has always mattered deeply. Ancient Chinese masters ranked mountain spring water supreme. Serious practitioners today still pay attention to water's mineral content and pH, understanding that soft water extracts sweetness while hard water can create bitterness. The water is as crucial as the leaves. Temperature, too, is crucial. Different teas require different temperatures to reveal their best qualities. Delicate white and green teas are scalded by boiling water, requiring cooler water, 160 to $180 /circ/text, F, $. Oolongs welcome hotter water, $190 to $200 /circ/text, F, $, while black and puer teas can handle a full boil, $212 /circ/text, F, $. This precision is the key to transformation. In China, the Gongfu tea ceremony represents the pinnacle of skill. Gongfu means making tea with effort. This method uses a high leaf-to-water ratio, brewed for very short times in small vessels like a gaiwan. The leaves are infused repeatedly, sometimes 10 to 15 times, with each infusion revealing different layers of flavor, like savoring a book slowly. The British tradition of adding milk to tea likely began in the 18th century, perhaps to protect delicate porcelain cups from cracking. What started as practicality became a persistent tradition and a source of gentle controversy: milk first, or tea first. As author George Orwell noted, this small order of pouring can carry great meaning. Tea has inspired countless works of art and literature. In Chinese poetry, tea symbolizes friendship and harmony with nature. The Tang Dynasty poet Lu Tong's Song of Tea describes 7 bowls, each bringing the drinker closer to a state of gentle, spiritual enlightenment. In Morocco, the art of pouring tea is performance and skill. The server holds the teapot high, sometimes 3 feet above the glasses, pouring in a steady, golden arc. This height aerates the tea, creating a prized foam on top. It transforms a practical act into something graceful that honors both the tea and the guest. Finally, the concept of terroir, borrowed from wine, applies equally to tea. Terroir encompasses everything about where a plant grows: soil, altitude, climate, and mist. 2 plants of the same variety grown in different locations produce distinctly different teas. The tea captures its place, acting as a liquid postcard from a specific spot on Earth. Let yourself rest now in these gentle traditions, humble tea rooms where all are equal, water chosen with care, temperature measured with precision, and tea poured from great heights. Feel the attention and love that humans have poured into this simple act. Let it quiet your mind and carry you softly into sleep. As you drift in this peaceful space, let us explore tea's most intimate connections, to health, to seasons, and to the rhythms of life. Tea leaves change with the seasons. Spring teas are bright and vital with new growth. Summer teas are more robust under the intense sun, while autumn brings a mellowing and gentle sweetness. Winter is the time of rest, essential for the plant to store energy and prepare for the next awakening. Tea teaches patience, showing that rest and activity are necessary cycles of life. In traditional Chinese medicine, tea has been used as medicine for over 2,000 years. Green tea was considered cooling, appropriate for summer, while black tea and pu'er were warming, perfect for cold weather and aiding digestion. Modern science is confirming this wisdom. For example, studies explore green tea's antioxidants and black tea's cardiovascular benefits. The word tea itself tells a geographical story. The Mandarin word is cha, which was adopted by languages along the overland trade routes, like Chai in Hindi and Che in Turkish. However, European traders encountered the coastal Fujian dialect word te by sea, leading to the English tea, French the, and German tea. The pronunciation reveals the route tea traveled. Tea storage is an art, as tea is sensitive and absorbs odors and moisture. Fine tea must be kept away from light, heat, moisture, and strong smells. The one exception is pu'er tea, which needs air and some humidity to age properly. Pu'er is the only tea that improves with time, rewarding decades of patience. In Vietnam, tea culture developed its own character, often involving flowers. Lotus tea is treasured. Green tea is placed inside lotus blossoms at night to absorb their perfume, a process repeated many times. The result is an ethereal, haunting fragrance. Vietnam also grows shan tuet, ancient snow tea from wild mountain trees, offering a sweet, complex flavor. The practice of tea blending created global classics. Earl Grey combines black tea with oil of bergamot for a distinctive, citrus-perfumed character. English breakfast blends robust black teas, Assam, Ceylon, Kenyan, to create a strong, malty brew that pairs well with milk in a morning meal. These blends achieved consistency and a reliable, satisfying flavor. The Boston Tea Party left a lasting impact. After independence, Americans associated tea with British tyranny, and coffee became the patriotic choice. This shift was economic and political, leading the U.S. to develop trade with coffee-producing regions. Even now, America's per capita tea consumption remains low compared to Britain or China. A single act of rebellion shifted the nation's beverage preference for centuries. Around the world, unique tea traditions surprise and delight. In Hong Kong, stocking milk tea combines strong black tea with condensed milk, repeatedly strained through a cloth that resembles a stocking, creating an intensely sweet and creamy drink. In India, masala chai blends black tea with milk, sugar, and warming spices like cardamom, cinnamon, and ginger. Each family has its own recipe, making it a warming comfort food. Feel yourself floating now, carried on these stories like leaves on a stream, through seasons and centuries, through the infinite expressions of this one simple plant. Tea has given humanity so much: comfort, connection, ritual, medicine, art, and peace. Let its ancient gift of calm settle over you like mist on a mountain, soft and complete. Let yourself drift, dear friend, into gentle sleep. Rest easy now, as we explore tea's final secrets, the ways it continues to surprise us, to evolve, and to remain forever new. In the mountains of Fujian Province, China, grows the Hong Pao, Big Red Robe, the most famous of the Wui rock oolongs. Legend says that tea cured a Ming Dynasty scholar, who, in gratitude, draped the 4 original bushes with his imperial red robe. These mother trees, over 350 years old, still cling to a cliff and are now protected national treasures. The last harvest from them sold for over $1 million per kilogram in 2005, a powerful reminder that some things are beyond price. Tea's influence extended to ship design. The Clipper ships were the fastest cargo vessels ever built, designed specifically to win the race to deliver the first tea harvest. The Cutty Sark, one of the finest tea clippers, rests today as a museum ship in London, preserving the age when tea ruled the waves. In Argentina, while yerba mate is the national beverage, the tradition of elegant afternoon tea took root in Buenos Aires due to British influence. Even today, beautiful tea houses in the city serve elaborate teas, a surprising blend of South American and British traditions. The practice of aging tea has expanded beyond pure to include white tea. Enthusiasts believe that aged white tea, over 5 to 20 years, shifts from fresh and floral to honey-sweet with notes of dried fruits. This willingness to wait patiently speaks to tea's ability to inspire devotion. Tea ceremonies exist beyond China and Japan. In Korea, the traditional dairy ceremony emphasizes simplicity and mindfulness, revived in recent decades using Korean ceramics and featuring local green or yellow tea. Its movements are slow and deeply meditative. The Camellia sinensis plant is closely related to ornamental camellias and produces small, fragrant white flowers in autumn and winter. Although rarely seen on commercial tea bushes, these flowers appear like small stars in wild forests, a reminder that tea is a living plant with its own natural beauty. Modern technology has touched tea in surprising ways. In Japan, specialized machines are used for harvesting commercial green tea, making it more affordable and accessible. However, for the finest, highest quality teas, human hands, instinct, and traditional methods remain irreplaceable. Tea's journey has come full circle. In the West, there is a renaissance of interest in mindful, artisanal tea traditions, with specialty shops offering rare teas and classes. Conversely, in China, coffee culture has exploded. Cultures exchange, traditions flow, and tea continues to evolve, finding new devotees in an unknowable future. Let these final truths settle softly, aged trees still standing after centuries, ships preserved as monuments, and traditions revived. Tea endures, adapts, surprises, and comforts. Now, let yourself also rest, completely and fully, embraced by the warmth. One last time, breathe deeply and slowly, as we complete our journey, arriving at the present moment where tea continues to weave itself into human life. Today, tea is the second most consumed beverage in the world, after water. Over 3 billion cups are consumed daily, connecting a Tibetan monk, a London commuter, and a Moroccan family. It is a thread running through humanity's tapestry. The global tea industry produces over 6 million metric tons annually. China, India, Kenya, and Sri Lanka lead production, but dozens of countries contribute their own unique character to the world's cup. This vast industry supports millions of workers, from pluckers to blenders and shippers. In recent years, an awareness of ethics has grown. Fair trade, organic, and sustainably grown teas are gaining importance. This shift, honoring the people who grow our tea in the land where it grows, represents tea's next evolution, reclaiming tea as something that can nurture communities and the earth. The health properties of tea continue to fascinate researchers. L-theanine, the unique amino acid, is studied for its potential to reduce anxiety and improve sleep quality. While not a medicine, tea encourages ritual, promotes mindfulness, and provides a moment of pause in our hurried world. Tea has even traveled beyond Earth. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station have drunk tea in space, using special pouches and straws. In 2008, a Russian astronaut even conducted a tea ceremony in microgravity, humanity's most ancient beverage shared in the most modern setting imaginable. The art of tea inspires new creativity. Tea sommeliers now emerge to guide appreciation, and tea competitions showcase master blenders and brewers. Tea's aesthetics and philosophy continue to resonate with contemporary artists, poets, and designers. Climate change now poses new challenges. Rising temperatures and changing rainfall affect production. Growers are adapting by developing heat-resistant cultivars and adjusting techniques. The tea plant has survived for millions of years, but these changes remind us that we must protect the natural systems where it grows. And finally, the most important truth of all, tea is ultimately about connection. Connection to history, to the countless people across millennia who have handled the leaf, connection to place, and connection to ourselves. In a world that moves so fast, tea offers permission to slow down, to be still, and to find peace and simplicity. This is tea's greatest gift. Our journey ends where it began, with a single leaf falling into water. Let these stories accompany you into sleep, comforting you with the knowledge that you are part of tea's long story. Rest now, deeply and peacefully. Let tea's ancient wisdom cradle you, that in a single cup, the whole universe can be found. Sleep well.